barrister has received an apology from court officials after this tweet. Today, I was assumed to be a defendant 3 times and a journalist once. There must be something about my face that says not a barrister, because I'm literally wearing a black suit like everyone else.
Well, now Alexandra Wilson is calling for change and wants to see anti-racism training in the legal system. And she joins us now. Well, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So I read your Twitter thread, as we all did, and as it went on, I started feeling incredibly angry and frustrated on your behalf, and I've never met you or know anything about you. It just seemed to be a catalogue of assumptions being made by people based, it appeared, entirely on your skin colour.
Yes, exactly. And I think what was so difficult is that this is all symptomatic of a much larger problem. Ultimately, the overrepresentation of Black people in the criminal justice system, which led to people assuming all day that I was a defendant as opposed to a barrister.
So talk us through exactly what happened to you.
The day started, it was a magistrate's court, so just for context, we don't wear wigs and gowns in the magistrate's court, we wear black suits. As I entered the building, the security officer asked for my full name so that he could tick me off of the list of defendants. I explained I was there as a barrister, and he apologised and went through security. I spoke to my client, then headed over to the courtroom to go and speak to the prosecutor, as is typical before any case. A member of the public stopped me before I went into the courtroom and said, "You can't go in there. Journalists can't go in there. It's for lawyers only." An usher of the courtroom told me to ignore her. She was the one person that day that seemed to think that I could legitimately be a barrister, and she encouraged me to go into the courtroom. Then, as I went into the courtroom, another legal representative, either a solicitor or barrister, sitting at the back of the courtroom, told me to go back outside and wait for the usher outside so that I could sign in for my case. Again, I said, I am here as a representative, I am a defence barrister. She was like, "Oh, I see," and looked kind of embarrassed and turned around. Then in the courtroom, I started to walk towards the prosecutor, and the legal clerk, the legal advisor to the magistrate, shouted at me to get out of the courtroom, and said I need to go outside, wait for the usher to sign me in, and then asked whether or not I was represented. And so then for the 4th time, I'd said, "I am the defence barrister and I'm trying to speak to the prosecutor." And she acknowledged what I said and turned back and got on with what she was doing. But at this point, as you can imagine, I was pretty exhausted of having to...
Alexandra, I think that's the point. That's the point, I think, is that these mistakes that people are making are actually having an enormous effect on your state of mind. You're a barrister who is in court to do a job. You want to remain focused, and you have all of these people saying something different about you. You describe it as exhausting. I mean, it must really shake you when you come to actually stating a case in court. I
think that one of the things that makes it so exhausting is that, my clients, and I'm sure I speak for every barrister when I say this, that my clients are the centre of everything. So you have to hold it together. You have to ignore any kind of emotions that you're feeling so that you can get through your case and make sure that you give your client, the best representation, which means, bottling it all up ultimately. And I think that really did add to the upset. Obviously, my client was what I had to focus on. I had to just get on with the case. And, the case did go smoothly. But it was then afterwards when it sort of dawned on me that actually I was fighting 2 battles. I wasn't just fighting for my client, but I was, fighting to prove that actually there's not, Black people can be barristers too.
Well, what is so extraordinary is when you look at your background here, you grew up in Essex, you're the oldest of 4 children. You studied at Oxford University. You were awarded 2 prestigious scholarships, enabling you to research the impact of police shootings in the US on young people's attitudes to the police. You went on to study for a graduate diploma in law and your Masters of Laws at the BBP University in London. You were awarded the first Queen's Scholarship by the Honourable Society of the Middle Temple, a scholarship awarded to students showing exceptional promise in a career at the bar. You put all that together, you're an absolutely stellar young lawyer in every possible regard, and yet you've been put through something which I can absolutely say with total certainty would never happen to a white barrister in your position. Just wouldn't happen.
Thank you, Piers. Yes, I think ultimately that's what the problem is. You know, that day in court, there were multiple white barristers and solicitors freely entering the courtroom, leaving the courtroom, and they went by unchallenged. And, you know, it's been very interesting to see the reaction from my colleagues in relation to all of this. You know, everyone has been very supportive. The black barristers I know also have experienced the same thing on multiple occasions, and that's not just junior barristers like me, that's all the way up to QCs. And then, you know, a lot of my white colleagues have admitted that this just doesn't happen to them. You know, they'll be in the same position as me, but the same thing just doesn't happen to them.
I mean, I saw lawyers responding, in the main almost all supportive of you, particularly other black lawyers, but I also saw you get trolled by racists, as if somehow the correct response to what you'd endured was to then make things worse by being racist towards you. What did you feel when you saw these morons trolling you like that?
It is disappointing, and ultimately it actually goes to prove the point that I was making. You know, some of the comments were saying things that, like, no wonder you got mistaken for being a barrister. You look like a chav criminal. And it's those sort of comments that are reinforcing the wider problems that I talk about, that black people are being perceived as criminals, you know, even when they're doing professional jobs. But besides the point is that based on the colour of my skin, people are making assumptions about me and about other black people.
Well, you've received an apology from court officials, but I wonder if you think that is, you know, even going to put an end to it.
I don't think an apology alone will put an end to it. I think an apology is a good start, and I'm grateful that it's being taken so seriously, not only by the head of the court service, but also by my colleagues, my peers, those senior to me. You know, the chair of the Bar Council reached out to offer support, but also to say how seriously they were taking it. I do think that we need to see real change. An apology isn't good enough. I think that perhaps training isn't going far enough at the moment. It's, you know, there's been equality and diversity training happening for a while now, not just at the bar, probably across society. But really what we need, and what I've been asking for, is anti-racist training, so that people can start to recognise things like systemic racism and the impact of that, and how to challenge biases that they might have personally, but also more systemic biases.
Well, Alexandra, it's a pleasure to have you on the programme.
It is.
You're an absolute... you're a tribute to your profession. I can say no more than that. It's got nothing to do with your skin colour and everything to do with your ability. You're an incredibly good lawyer, and your clients are lucky to have you. And I'm just sorry that you had to endure such a repulsive sequence of events, which just diminished everything that you had put so much hard work into. But it's great to have you on the programme, and best of luck to you.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much.
It's lovely to meet you, Alexandra Wilson. What an impressive young woman.
She's definitely going to be my defending QC when the inevitable moment comes.